Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Love Tools by Isobel Reed, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Lily stared at the boarded-up windows and took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. Pulling the keys from her handbag, she unlocked the door and followed the creak into the dimly lit store. To her surprise, the shelves were still stocked and brimming with power tools, each item covered in a layer of dust that had already started to make its way up her nostrils. "What the hell are you doing here, Lily?" she muttered to herself as she ran her fingers across the counter. It was going to be more work than she ever imagined to get this place up and running. She just hoped the apartment upstairs was in better condition. After exploring the shop floor, she went to find out. She followed the beige hallway into the living room, took a seat on the squeaky leather sofa, and looked around. The space was depressing, habitable, but depressing nonetheless. How could her dad have lived here for so long and it still feel so empty? Furniture was sparse. Other than the chair she sat in, the only other items that remained were a flat-screen TV, a scratched wooden coffee table, and a small shelving unit scattered with a few books and a couple of picture frames. She looked over at the kitchen adjoining the living room and noticed some basic appliances. It felt strange to be in his space, his home, surrounded by his things. Was there a right way to feel? No, he's nothing to you. He made damn sure of that. Suck it up and do what you need to do. Taking off her jacket, she started to gather up her wild blonde hair and tied it on top of her head. It was time to get to work. With the boxes in sight already full, she reached for some rubbish bags and began filling them with his things. She threw in every frame she came across, not ready to look at pictures of him yet. Once she'd made it into the bedroom, she went straight to the wardrobe at the bottom of the bed. Without taking the time to examine the clothes that still hung there, she quickly scooped up the hangers and filled her bag. It wasn't long until black sacks lined the hallway. But she wasn't ready to throw them out quite yet. She pondered if there might be a time in the near future that she would feel strong enough to sit down and go through all of his things. I should just burn them. Ignoring the new urge to set fire to everything that reminded her of Matthew, she let out a big sigh and picked up her luggage. The fate of the belongings would have to wait until she concentrated on unpacking her own stuff. After emptying her suitcases, she was still full of energy. Itching to make a start on the store, she frantically searched the cupboards for cleaning products, finding enough to at least make a dent. For the sake of her bank balance, she needed to get this place open as quickly as possible. Changing into some old clothes she didn't mind getting dirty, she readied herself for just one of the many challenges that lay ahead. Downstairs, she peered at the grimy surfaces and realized that every nook and cranny would need her attention. Deciding against removing all the stock before she launched into cleaning, she instead chose to do one shelf at a time. After setting a goal for at least one aisle before bed, she needed some inspiration. It was time for a little mood music. Reaching for her phone and speaker, she selected her favorite playlist and turned up the volume. Swaying to the rhythm, she sang along and emptied each shelf before working her domestic magic. Every wipe down gave her a sense of achievement. She even started to believe that maybe things would be okay after all. Distracted by a particularly upbeat song, she felt herself get lost in the music, her mood lifting with every hip shake. It wasn't long before she was in a world of her own and busting out moves all along the shop floor. That was until a loud, very forced cough from behind scared the living daylights out of her. Quickly twisting around, she placed a hand over her heart, which felt like it was about to jump right out of her chest, and was met with an inquisitive, blue-eyed stare. A man with an amused smirk pasted on his face was casually slouched against an empty shelf. A tall, dark-haired man who couldn't be much older than her. Still in shock, a barrage of cursing ensued before she was finally able to string a sentence together. "You scared the hell out of me," she angrily put a stop to the music. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" Alarm bells sounded as she realized she was all alone with a strange man. Shit. Stranger danger. Trying to mask any fear, she crossed her arms defiantly and offered up her scariest scowl. "Yeah, that'll stop him from murdering you." "Well, hello to you too." The man began to straighten himself. "I might ask you the very same question. Who are you, darling, and how did you get in here?" His deep, gravelly voice sent a shiver down her spine. The more she studied him, the more self-conscious she became, so much so that she found herself tugging down her shorts and vest. I own this place, this locked store. How did you get in here? You own this place. He scrunched up his face as if confused. That's not possible. This place hasn't been on the market. Well, it clearly is possible because it's mine. Who did this guy think he was? He pulled out a set of keys from his denim pocket and dangled them in front of her. Look, I was a friend of Matt's, and I know for a fact this place wasn't up for sale. Her patience was beginning to wane. Of course, Matt hadn't mentioned her. Why would he? Selfish bastard was probably all too aware of the reaction he would have faced. Any fears she might have had quickly switched back to rage, a rage that apparently gave her the balls to snatch the keys right out of the man's hands. Matthew was my dad, and my dad left me this place in his will. The man, still staring at his empty hand, was quiet for a moment while he processed what she'd just barked at him. Lily took the opportunity to scan his face and let her eyes wander down him. His broad shoulders filled out his check shirt that pulled tight across his muscled chest. She tried her hardest not to gawk as her gaze traveled down farther to his mud-stained denim jeans that molded perfectly to tense thighs. Holy shit, he's hot. Do all the men in Montana look like this? You about done checking me out, darling, or do you want me to turn around and show you the back? She felt her cheeks flame as her eyes flicked back up and she caught sight of his cocky grin. Before she could attempt to deny that what she'd been doing, his expression turned more serious as he gave her a once-over. I didn't know Matt had a daughter. Surprise, surprise. No shit, he wasn't exactly father of the year. Lily couldn't help but think of the irony. Her father had become friends with some guy young enough to be his son, yet he still couldn't quite be bothered to pick up the phone and call his own daughter. Marlboro Man's smile became crooked as his glare intensified. You always swear like a trucker, darling. Here I thought English women were all class and manners. Is he being fucking serious? She let out a huff. She couldn't believe the nerve of this guy. I'm sorry, have I stepped into the past? Are you going to ask me why a little woman like me isn't married yet? All right, sweetheart, calm down, he sniggered, clearly amused by the steam coming out of her ears. Stepping closer to him, she tilted her head up to meet his gaze. I'm not, nor will I ever, be your sweetheart. Now, if you don't mind, you need to get the hell out of my store before I call the police. Laughing, he threw his hands up in the air in mercy, a smile still glued to his face. Whatever you say, sweetheart. Lily steered her cart into the cleaning aisle. Opting for the cheapest item, she began to fill her trolley, still daunted by what she'd taken on. As she made her way to the checkout, she could still feel the curiosity from each local she passed. Bluestone County was a small town, nothing like London. She certainly wouldn't have the anonymity she had back home. Despite the whispers following her around the supermarket, she was pleased that she'd managed to avoid any interrogations, although she had no doubt they were coming. As she carried her shopping bag down the cobblestone streets, a high-pitched voice rang out behind her. Need some help? She turned to see a wiry denim-clad woman peering over at her. Long, straight auburn hair framed her heart-shaped face that displayed a friendly, wide-eyed smile. Lily guessed they were around the same age. She politely declined the woman's help, but before she could continue on her way, the woman spoke again. You're Matt's daughter, right? You're staying at the store? One person. She'd told one person. How had news traveled so fast? Yeah, how did you... Oh, it's a small town, she giggled before putting out her hand to introduce herself. I'm Sam. Lily freed up a hand and shook it. Lily, nice to meet you. Wow, that accent is awesome. You sound like something out of the TV show, Downton Abbey. Before Lily could decide if that was a compliment or an insult, Sam grabbed one of the bags out of her hand and motioned for Lily to follow her. Here, I'll help. I'm heading that way anyway. With no choice but to follow, Lily hurried to catch up, her feet dodging uneven cobbles as they continued their walk toward the shop. So you gonna reopen it, the store, I mean? Hopefully, it needs a good clean. I also need to familiarize myself with the products. Who knew there were so many different types of drills? Sam let out a chuckle. So I take it you're going to keep it as a hardware store. Her eyes roved over Lily as if trying to work something out. Yeah, why? Lily suddenly felt defensive. Was it so odd she was going to be selling tools? What else was she supposed to do with it? It made sense to keep it as it was. Besides, she had the stock and no other ideas or money. Just curious. I guess most folks would take one look at you and assume you would try and turn it into something girly like a clothing boutique or a cake shop. Girly? That's a first. Well, sorry to disappoint, but I can't bake, and I know even less about fashion than power drills, so I think I'm going to just have to stick to selling tools. Sam burst into laughter just before they reached the store. Damn, girl, I like you. You've got some spunk. You know, I own a ranch just outside of town. I've got a lot of my equipment from Matt's back in the day. I'd be happy to show you some of them if you want me to come on out, so you can get a feel for what the products do. Really? Lily already knew she needed all the help she could get. That would actually be really useful. Cool, let's swap numbers and I'll text you the address. After numbers were exchanged and a day for the visit was agreed, Sam left Lily to get on with her to-do list. But before Lily could even wipe down a surface, her phone rang. It was her mom again. After letting out a huge sigh, she reluctantly answered. Her mother immediately launched back into a tirade. Apparently this morning's talking to wasn't enough, or last night's, or the one she had to endure on the ride over to the airport. It's just not like you, Lily, to be this reckless. When are you going to come to your senses and come back home? Lily took a seat behind the counter. She knew that this was going to be a long one. Mom, please, I can't keep having the same conversation with you. So what, you're just going to follow in your father's footsteps now? Abandon your family, your friends, your life, and for what? A silly store in the middle of nowhere? Lily studied the shop floor that lay ahead of her. She wasn't completely sure why, but she knew in her heart that Bluestone was where she needed to be. Unfortunately, a feeling in her gut was proving difficult to explain to her mother. I don't expect you to understand, Mom, and I'm not abandoning you or Alice. I just don't have anything back home, to keep me there. So your own mother and sister aren't enough for you. Wow, she was laying it on thick today. She knew for a fact that Alice supported her. Yes, as half-sisters go, they were pretty close, but unlike her mother, her sister just wanted Lily to be happy, even if that did mean moving halfway across the world. Lily was already sick of being made to feel guilty. You've both got people you love, Mom, and jobs that you actually enjoy. I don't have that. Don't want to work in a dead-end job for the rest of my life. I mean, I was an admin assistant, for God's sake, with no possible prospects. Out here, I'm a business owner. Your dad's business, her mother sneered. So what? I don't care that it was his. It's the least he could do for me, don't you think? The line went quiet for a while, and Lily could feel herself getting frustrated. I know, Lily. I just don't get why you have to move there. Sell the business and use the money to do something over here. You don't have to leave the country just because you're single, darling. There are plenty of men here in London. In fact, I was just talking to Julie the other day, and her son just moved back over from Dubai. You remember Tom, don't you? Very handsome and completely rolling in it. He was asking about you. I told Julie that she should give him your number. Oh, my freaking God, you've got to be kidding me. Lily's head dropped to the counter. It was going to be a long day. Despite the store cleanup going well, being in one place for so long was beginning to get to Lily. She was guessing that talking to only herself and her mother for a whole week was likely the culprit, so visiting Sam's ranch was a welcome relief. It was a warm, sunny day, and she was looking forward to spending it outdoors. Not knowing what you were supposed to wear on a ranch tour, she resisted the urge to wear flip-flops and paired her jeans and vest combo with boots. Quietly congratulating herself for an outfit choice, she pulled up outside the main house. She couldn't quite believe the size of the land surrounding her. Climbing out of the car, she felt the fresh air fill her lungs as she continued to survey what looked like miles and miles of fields. While she was taking in the view, Sam came into the sight and shouted over to her. Pleased to see a friendly face, Lily waved and started toward her. Come in, Sam excitedly greeted. Following Sam into the house, Lily was stunned at just how grand it was. To the left of the hall was a large, modern living room with 3 navy sofas and a giant television. Sam then led her through the room and into an equally as impressive kitchen, complete with stainless steel appliances and a huge breakfast bar with silver stools scattered around it. Wow, this place is amazing. How long have you lived here? Actually, I grew up here. It didn't always look like this, though, trust me. It needed a lot of updating, so my brother and I spent a lot of time and money fixing it up a couple of years ago. Well, you guys did good. This is like my dream kitchen. Lily ran her hands over the granite surfaces. Thank you. A shy smile appeared on Sam's face as she poured them some juice. Hopefully you'll like the rest of the place, too. Oh, I have no doubt, Lily assured her. After Sam went into more detail about the refurbishment the house had undergone, they took a stroll outside through the patio doors and into the yard, which was pretty much just another field. Leading Lily over to what looked like a cross between a tractor and a quad bike, Sam gestured her inside. After clambering in, Sam announced that they were now ready to explore the rest of the ranch. The stables were the first stop of the tour, which ironically were within walking distance of the house. You have so many, Lily exclaimed on her way over to pet the silky smooth skin of the first horse poking its head toward her. Yeah, it's a big source of our income. We house a few of them for their owners and offer up training and riding lessons. Sam gently stroked the mane of an affectionate chestnut horse. They're so beautiful, I might have to take one of your lessons. I'd be happy to give you a freebie. Having another woman around here would be a welcome relief from all the testosterone floating about. Lily giggled. It dawned on her that Sam was probably just in much need of a friend as she was. The next stop on the tour was the guest cabins, which were rented out to tourists looking for authentic country experiences. Sam explained that it was called a dude ranch. From what Lily understood, people from all over America would come stay out here for a week and learn to ride, fish, and go on hikes. Wandering around one of the cabins, Lily could see the appeal. It was all self-contained, nicely decorated, and benefited from a breathtaking view of the rolling hills. She wouldn't mind treating herself to a weekend here once she'd sorted out the store. How do you manage to do this and all the lessons and stuff? She was exhausted at just the thought of it. Just maintaining the land had to be a full-time job, let alone having guests, training horses, and teaching people how to ride. Sam snorted at that. It's not just me. I run the ranch with my brother Jake, and we've got ranch hands, a chef, the works. Come on, I'll take you to meet Jake. Back in the vehicle, they drove through a collection of trees and into another field. She could make out a figure in the distance, fiddling with what looked like a fence. It wasn't until they parked next to the gate that Lily recognized Jake, having only recently kicked him out of the store. She started to feel nervous. Of all the men in Bluestone County, why did this one have to be Sam's brother?